This is Chris Payne from Euclid, Ohio, and you are listening to Barbecue Central.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh, should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling. I originate from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city of Cleveland, Ohio, widely considered to be the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I am your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening. If you want to get in touch with the show this evening, it's a phone call, 216-220-0966. If you would rather forego the hotline number and shoot me an email, you can do that as well.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to greg@bbqcentralshow.com or on the Twitter and Instagrams at BBQ Central Show.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you didn't get the newsletter. Coming up in about 13 minutes from now, if you are an avid listener of this show, whether it be in the live state or in podcast form, and by the way, there could be some kind of an iTunes issue with the podcast, which I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. But I got an incredibly weird email from iTunes telling me that they were ripping the feed off. There wasn't a lot of great information. I don't know if it's a phishing scam or not, but when I started to get on iTunes and re-look for the show, it wasn't really showing up. You had to do a whole different search through under the Files tab. There's subscribe to podcast, put in the feed, and then it would generate. But just searching in through the iTunes store through the podcast, it wasn't coming up. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that. I am looking into it, and I guess we'll see tomorrow when the first hour of the show is supposed to post, if it is indeed there or if it is indeed not there, and we'll fix it accordingly. You can always get it on the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. That is the main clearinghouse for anything related to the show, audio, video, and or otherwise. But if you are a fan of this show, the last number of weeks I have been talking specifically about the Barbecue Hall of Fame, and in specific, the fact that I had got my hands on the final nominees list for the class of 2018 from No Names Please. And we went over that list in depth last week with the Embedded Correspondence segment. We all had our pick of 3. But there was a name that came up that I had no idea who this person was. I'm not going to make it a secret. It is Columbus Hill. Couldn't really find a lot about this person. So started doing a little internet research. The Embedded Correspondence also took that task as well. And then I believe David Huff or Steve Ray had forwarded me some very brief penned articles from who will be my first segment guest, Adrian Miller, the soul food scholar, about Columbus Hill and when he actually existed on this earth many, many, many years ago, 1800s, when he came into prominence, probably before that as well, but just not a lot of history on him. And I said, you know what, this is probably a great time to look at some of those nominees, also try and get some actual Hall of Fame members of 2018 booked here in the coming weeks as well. I'll talk about that here in a second. So joining me in about 10 minutes from now is the soul food scholar himself. He's a lawyer. He's a Stanford graduate. He's very accomplished professionally. And he's a culinary historian, and he will tell us all we want to know about one Columbus Hill. And if he should indeed be in the Hall of Fame, perhaps he should already be in the Hall of Fame. And we might also talk about the Hall of Fame in general, trade ideas, thoughts, and or otherwise, criticisms. So that's Adrian Miller, first time into the show, coming up here out of the next break. And then at 9:35, again, if you're a fan of the show, round about this time of year, we pump the brakes on the barbecue and grilling talk for a segment and dive into type 1 diabetes, juvenile type 1 diabetes, specifically with, in the past, my cousin, Scott Volpe. This year, my main man, Ben Volpe, will be taking the mic and doing it all himself in the 9:35 segment. He's got the big fundraising walk for JRDF on June 10th. I've been hyping it on my Facebook page. He is in fundraising mode, so I'm going to appeal to you to if you're watching on the Facebook page, and hopefully the correspondents are pumping up the links right now to either the Facebook page, donation page, or the JRDF website, whichever one you want to use. I would really like to get him to goal tonight. I know typically we have a couple thousand views here on Facebook, so if you could hit that link, $5, $10, $100. I have put it out there for the first person to do a singular donation of $500, and you prove it, one time only. I will match your $500 donation. We will do $1,000 all by ourselves. You and me. But how great would it be to get him to that $6,000 goal that is sitting on the main JDRF website? JDRF website. And have that all washed out here before the end of our 2 hours together. So I, again, appeal to you and your charitable side, whatever you can muster. Let's go ahead and do some fundraising. Embedded correspondence, if you're watching and you're able to keep track, give me some kind of a tote and or tally. If you do the Facebook side of it, shout out Barbecue Central Show. Let's go ahead and make sure that everybody knows that the Central Lights are coming out in full force. I mean, we're not look at me, but I want to know that you guys are picking me up and helping me out here. I don't try and come out to you guys and ask for a lot, but in this particular case, I mean, it does hit home for me because this is my cousin who I grew up with. This is his son, his oldest son, going through it, so he's going to tell us about the whole deal at 9:35, and then we'll move on to the second hour. We'll keep fundraising going through the second hour, so once again, hit up that Facebook page or hit up that main Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation page and donate early and often. At 10:14, we will be rejoined. I am running him up for 2 weeks in a row. He is the Texas correspondent for the show, but he is also a Traeger pitmaster. Doug Schediing will be joining me. Also the pitmaster of Rogue Cookers, by the way, which is the T-shirt I'm wearing this evening. A lot of people took me to task last week about the show Karma not being real because Melissa Cookston didn't win Memphis in May 2 weeks ago. But I'll have you know that Doug Schediing did this show last Tuesday, didn't ask for anything, no promo, didn't say he was going out to do a contest that following weekend, which was last weekend, Memorial Day weekend. Summarily took a third place overall. So you tell me the show Karma isn't real. Did he win? No. But he didn't even ask for it. It just happened. It attached third place. Can you imagine if he would have promoted? Definitely would have won away with Grand Championship. No doubt about it. So Doug Schediing, 10:14. And then 10:35, a late book. And once again, kind of breaking news here. I had mentioned to you previous to Memphis in May that it looked like Kingsford, the charcoal titan, was getting into the cooking wood pellet business. And then it was a little more reaffirmed last week when I saw a bag of Kingsford pellets out there around Memphis in May. And then I did a little bit more digging and booked the corporate strategist for Trey Fuels. That is the company that indeed has secured the wood pellet manufacturing for the Kingsford pellet run into the market. So not only is it Kingsford, the charcoal titan, now they are making the foray into the wood pellet business as well. So what is that? How does that contract happen? How does that relationship start? And of course, because There aren't, I guess, a huge amount of pellet manufacturers out there in the market today, but there are certainly a number of them. And the ones that are existing out there really doing a good job. Obviously, one of the big sponsors here of this show, Cooking Pellets, does it probably better than anybody out there right now. You have Candy Weaver, Barbecuer's Delight, Green Mountain Grills makes their own as well. Plus, there's some other pellet makers out there. So getting into that side of it, Kingsford didn't decide to take it in-house. We'll talk to, I'm sorry, by the way, that is Chris LaRocco will be joining us, corporate strategist, Trey Fuels, to close out the show. But why didn't they take it in-house? I don't know if they're not necessarily set up for that, be able to do that type of manufacturing. So they farm it out to a partner. Love to know the business of barbecue, right? Absolutely. So Chris will help us close out the show at 10:35. 216-220-0966. Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com is the way to get in touch with me. Let me talk to you quickly about Southside Market and Barbecue. Attention, anyone who loves sausage and barbecue, because they kind of go hand in hand. What do you know about Southside? Established in 1882, Southside is the oldest barbecue joint in Texas and has been owned and operated by the same family for 3 generations. Famous for their original beef sausage, coarse ground in a natural pork casing, and the authentic Central Texas barbecue. All meats, including the prime briskets, are slow smoked for many hours over real Texas post oak wood. They ship nationwide via the online store, southsidemarket.com. They ship fresh and smoked sausages nationwide. Shipping customers can choose to order now and ship later, include custom gift notes, and mail to multiple addresses without additional shipping charges. All shipped items are vacuum sealed to ensure freshness and ease of preparation for the customer, shipped with dry ice to ensure complete freshness upon arrival. All meats are processed in the on-site USDA-inspected facility. The on-site meat markets for fresh and smoked products can be ordered. You can also talk to them about custom orders as well. If you're going to be in Elgin or Bastrop, check out the restaurants. You're going to want to do that. Also, grocery distribution through Texas and many surrounding states. And if you're somebody who's thinking about adding a little custom sausage to your arsenal, but you don't want to have to go through the R&D, Southside Market's wheelhouse right here, okay? They can give you the sausage. Then you, in turn, well, not give it to you, but you buy it. Their sausage already made. You package it. They'll work with you on that aspect. So now you can have Barbecue Central sausage, but it's really Southside's beef sausage. You can put it in your food truck. You can put it in your pop-up. You can put it in your brick-and-mortar restaurant. If you have really good barbecue and you want to pair it with a really good sausage, this is the opportunity to do it. Online orders, 10% off if you use coupon code BBQ Central, all one word. That's BBQ Central for 10% off all of your orders at southsidemarket.com. It's fun and exciting. You gotta love it. Get the beef sausage if you haven't had it. I'm telling you, it is a unique taste. And sometimes when you say unique taste, it's not that good. This is a unique taste in all of the good ways. Adrian Miller, Columbus Hill. Out of the break. Stick around. Be right back.
Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Butcher Barbecue, makers of award-winning injections, marinades, rubs, seasonings, barbecue sauces, and grilling oils. All of Butcher Barbecue products have been tested on the competition circuit, as well as in backyards worldwide. Actually, in my backyard just this past weekend. Be the pitmaster of your neighborhood, the king of your cul-de-sac. Visit butcherbbq.com and stock up now. That's butcherbbq.com. Always trust your butcher. All right, in the newsletter earlier today, I said that I had become somewhat intrigued with one of the 2018 Barbecue Hall of Fame nominees, Columbus Hill. Mostly because I really never have heard of him before. There was not a lot of information that was, let's say, readily available. And what I did find was written by my first guest. He's a Stanford University graduate and also a graduate of Georgetown University's law program. He's practiced law in Denver and has also worked for President Bill Clinton. He's also a certified barbecue judge, perhaps one of the smartest people to ever grace the Barbecue Central Show airwaves and video waves. Let's go ahead and race to the hotline. And welcome first-timer to the show, Adrian Miller.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Adrian. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have your camera up so we can see your beautiful face?
Oh, yeah. Just a second. Sorry about that.
That'll help with the video side. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Oh, there he is. Look at this guy. All right, Adrian, so I had contacted you specifically about a article. Actually, it was a pair of articles that you had written about Columbus Hill a number of years ago, actually. And the impetus, of course, was the fact that I had somehow gotten my hands, no names please, on the 2018 nominees for the Barbecue Hall of Fame this year. Those three have been awarded: Tuffy Stone, Tootsie Tominance, and the guy from Rendezvous, Charlie Virgos. Sorry for having that. So those are confirmed now. It was the day after my show last Tuesday. But Columbus Hill was a name that I really hadn't seen. There were a few of those names on that list that I was familiar with just in a cursory sense, so I wanted to spend some time in this segment talking about Columbus Hill and what you found out about him. But before we get into that, can we get a little background on you professionally, and maybe if you're a guy that's into that barbecue and grilling scene as well?
Yeah, so I have a sordid background. I actually am a lawyer by training, and then I went into politics. I worked in the Clinton White House on something called the Initiative for One America. It was an outgrowth of Clinton's initiative on race. And the whole idea was if people just got together and talked, we might realize we have a lot more in common than what supposedly divides us. Then I moved back to Colorado and was in politics for another decade or so. And then I got this crazy idea to write a book on the history of soul food, which I did. And to research that, I needed to eat my way through the country. So I went to 150 soul food restaurants in 35 cities and 15 states.
Wow.
And that book came out in 2013, and I was lucky enough to win the James Beard Award for that book. And then my current job is with the Colorado Council of Churches, which is bringing churches together to do social justice work. And last year, I wrote my second book on African-American presidential chefs, and my next book is going to be on African-American barbecue culture. And along the way, I became a certified barbecue judge with the Kansas City Barbecue Society.
So that is a sordid background and a very accomplished background. Let me ask you a question that we could probably veer off and never get back on track by asking this question. But, you know, when I travel the mean streets of downtown Cleveland, few places hang the moniker soul food above the restaurant. So how does one classify soul food? Do you just get totally stereotypical and say it's ribs and chicken, or is there, or in greens, or is there more of a rooted diversity in soul food or something specific that makes it soul food?
Yeah, so soul food has a lot of overlap with Southern food, which I think is what creates a confusion. But I think soul food is a more intense version of Southern food. So it's going to be spicier, have more fat, more flavor, and usually features more of the variety meats and kind of more poverty image ingredients, although soul food is much more complex than that. But that's the image people have. And I argue that soul food is really the celebration of the food that Black migrants took to other parts of the country. And when you think of immigrant food in other cultures, it's usually their celebration food. So the ribs, the fried chicken, the glorious cakes and cobbler, you know, that wasn't everyday food. That was once in a while food. And so soul food is really a hybrid of everyday and once in a while food. But the difference between Southern and soul for me is that soul food tastes better.
Personal preference, or are we making a declarative statement?
I'm making a personal preference. I don't want to get in too much trouble.
Is there a portion of the country, I'm guessing Southern more than Northern, but would you say that real soul food is down in the South area, or not necessarily?
Yeah, well, it gets tricky because in the South, they don't really call it soul food. It's usually called Southern food or country cooking or home cooking. But to me, the ancestral homeland of soul food is really kind of the interior South, the Mississippi Delta area, before you really get deep into New Orleans to Louisiana, because I think Creole is something different. But kind of Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, that food that gets taken to other parts of the country. So really the food that you see in urban cities all around the country where Black people settled and congregate and started to flourish.
Let's talk a little bit about Columbus Hill and the two pieces that I read from you. One was the wildest barbecue that this country has ever seen. And, within that piece, you described this big event that was, 20,000 people were initially anticipated. 50,000 people show up. So that's a difference of 30,000 to the plus that you're probably not expecting. The
Right.
liquor starts flowing first. But the menu, bear, elk, items that you just don't hear about being barbecued, possums by the truckload. Just the items that you don't necessarily hear about being barbecued anymore.
Right.
Kind of recap us a little bit. I kind of glossed over at high level there, but recap us a
Yeah.
little bit on that event and what you know or what you can tell us about Columbus Hill, the man and the pitmaster.
Yeah. So let me just give a little intro to Columbus Hill himself.
Yep.
So he shows up in Colorado around the late 1870s, and as you find a few articles about him in the local papers. But then his biggest event was in the early 1890s, July 4th weekend, 1891, when the cornerstone was laid for our state capitol building. He actually does the barbecue for that, and 20,000 people show up for that. And so steadily through the 1890s, he builds up this reputation. So by the time you get to the 1898, we have something called the Stock Show here in Denver that's very famous. If you grow up as a little kid here, you have to go there as a field trip, and it's a big deal. And in the late 1890s, it wasn't certain that Denver was going to keep the stock show. So the Stock Growers Association, which is the really moneyed people in the business, decided to have a VIP barbecue. And so they brought in 10 1,000-pound steers. I wrote this down. 2 bears, 400 pounds each, 2 buffaloes, 4 elk, 7 antelope, 7 mountain sheep, and 200 possum.
Wow.
Yeah, they wanted it to be the barbecue to end all barbecues. So Columbus Hill's in charge of this. Everything's going fine, but word gets out into the seedy part of town, which is Lodo, lower downtown Denver. And so all of these people who aren't VIPs show up for this barbecue, and they smell that good cooking. And eventually, there's bum rush the cooks, and you have the governor of Colorado and the mayor of Denver getting on a platform trying to chill everybody out. And somebody decided, hey, maybe if we just give out some free beer, that will chill them out.
That always works.
And so you have a food riot. So people throw food. Basically, the governor and the mayor had to get off the platform because they were getting pelted with food, and an all-out brawl just breaks out. And this was in the newspapers for several days. In fact, Columbus Hill's reputation took a serious hit because of just what happened. I don't think any of it's his fault, but he kind of took the blame for it. But yeah.
Do you have any idea of what this cook site looked like, or any type of topography of how this thing was laid out? To cook the amount of food that you just laid out, sheer protein is absolutely mind-blowing.
Well, so here's the thing. This is why I kind of gravitated to Columbus Hill, because the newspapers of the day, the Denver Post, the Rocky Mountain News, and some other newspapers in Denver covered the event extensively, and they actually drew out maps of the cooking area. And so Columbus Hill's method was to do the old Southern trench kind of type of cooking. So there was several long trenches with bars across the top, and you just made sure that the meat was, turned every once in a while so it didn't get burned up. But yeah, and there are pictures of it actually while the cooking's going on. So it's a rare find, because usually these things are described in maybe a paragraph or two and not in any detail. So that's why I love this story and this event.
So as he is taking this hit, as you say, how is he able to recover going forward, or does he ever fully recover for something like this?
So from what I can tell, he really never does a big barbecue for the general population. He kind of goes into the African-American culture. So almost all of the references in newspapers after that point are him really cooking for African-American audiences. In fact, my home church, Campbell Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church, is profiled in a newspaper in 1906 for a barbecue that Columbus does. And it was a nice write-up, but he never really overcomes that in general society.
So he's obviously a very accomplished pitmaster, holding something that he's kind of charged with that has nothing to do with him. He's doing his job, and the people decide to let the other people get drunk, and rowdiness ensues, tomfoolery and shenanigans.
Right, exactly.
What kind of a history does Columbus have coming up? he obviously, did he live in Colorado initially? Did he move there and hone his cooking skills there? What kind of an upbringing did he have?
Yeah, so that's where it gets tricky because there's not a lot of documentation of his early life. And one of my quests as I write my book is to really do some more archival research and find that out. All we know is that he comes from Missouri, and then he does a lot of barbecues all over kind of the Middle West. So he's doing barbecues in Missouri. Evidently, he does quite a few barbecues in Texas. By the time he gets to the stock show, the people writing about him say that he's done more barbecues than anybody in the Union. I don't know if that's true because there's a lot of hyperbole in those days, right? So yeah, we just don't know. We know that he's married. He and his wife live in Denver from the 1880s on, and he ends up dying in the early 1920s. So other than that, we just don't really have a lot of detail about him. But these 3 big barbecues that he does in the 1890s are extensively covered. So we get illustrations of him in action with a fleet of cooks around him. I mean, for this stock show barbecue, I think he had 300 people helping him.
Can you imagine if that was covered in today's environment with social media and Facebook Live and the Barbecue Central show flying out to Colorado to cover it? He would be like the most prolific pitmaster ever.
Yeah, and then after things go south, man, he would be feeling like a lot of like James Harden or all these athletes today, right? So yeah.
From a Barbecue Hall of Fame perspective, he was on the list. Did you happen to be the guy that voted for him?
Yes, I was. And what I was trying to do is I think the Hall of Fame needs more diversity. I think there's only one African American there who is Henry Perry, who deserves to be there because he's really recognized as the father of Kansas City barbecue. But I wanted to nominate Hill in the legacy category because as I do more and more research, you look at the papers in the late 1800s, really from 1870s to the 1890s, you find all of these African American men who are highly celebrated in the press and are known as barbecue experts. And when anybody wants to do a next level barbecue, they're going to these guys. So I thought because we had so much information about Hill, and these other guys usually are just like a line or two in an entire article, I just thought, well, this guy's documented. Maybe he can kind of be representative for this class of cooks who just aren't celebrated.
At that time, is there a lot of documentation to be able to go back and pull names from? One of the bigger, we're going to talk about the Barbecue Hall of Fame now and why I have numerous issues. But I thought, when the American Royal bought it from whatever weird online presence was existing before that they should have had a huge base of inductees, hundreds and hundreds. So you build this great base, and then you could start going in and inducting 3 or maybe 5 people over the course of the year. So Columbus Hill could have been put in there, and any number of people just had one big birth of this brand new edition of the Barbecue Hall of Fame. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think it's going to take some research to identify these folks because one of my critiques of the Barbecue Hall of Fame is it's not clear to me what it is celebrating, what aspects of barbecue culture. The way it's played out, it seems to be a competitive barbecue Hall of Fame for the most part. I think if they were a little more transparent about their criteria and what they were celebrating, it would help. But to go to your early question, yeah, these once you dig into the old newspapers, these names pop up. Now, again, there's not a lot written about these men, and they're pretty much have all been men to this point that I've found. I think it's going to take some research to go to census data, find out if he had a business, where he lived. That's going to take some time. But the names are there. I mean, I found at least 10 people written about in several articles in the late 1800s. So they're there. They just need to be discovered and celebrated.
I shared with you the list of nominees as well. Aside from Columbus Hill, obviously you have the connection there. Were there another 2 people on that list that you thought should get in, or that you would vote in?
Yeah, from what you shared with me, I thought Matt Garner should have been selected. And I can't remember if he actually, I know somebody nominated him, but he's recognized as the guy who jumpstarts the barbecue scene in Houston. So much like Henry Perry gets credit for Kansas City, Matt Garner was really the one to get things going in Houston. The other guys and the other woman, Helen Turner, who I remember, great barbecue artists. I guess my sentiment is I don't know if they were ready for the Hall of Fame because to me, they've had MVP seasons. But to me, a Hall of Fame is a body of work over a long period of time. But Rodney Scott, who just won the James Beard Award as best chef in the Southeast, Certainly great barbecue guy. Is he Hall of Fame yet? I'm not so sure. Helen Turner, who's been doing her thing in West Texas, or I'm sorry, West Tennessee for a long time. Very accomplished barbecuer. Is she on the same level as Tootsie? I guess is that her name?
Yeah.
The woman. Yeah. I'm not so sure, but very fine people, very good at what they do. But to me, there should be some kind of just threshold for Hall of Fame, to be inducted there.
Adrian Miller joining me here on the show. So let's talk about that just for a second, because that's also been one of my bigger sticking points. Is there doesn't seem to be any transparent way to gauge how you get in. You're
Right.
nominating Columbus Hill. For the last 4 years, I've been making a run at getting me on that nomination list to prove that soliciting names from people is probably a bad idea, because I could wind up on that stage at some point making a ludicrous speech, probably calling out Guy Fieri and saying this is why the Barbecue Hall of Fame is in danger because he's in and a guy like Columbus Hill isn't. But that's neither here nor there. So if they were approached and they said, hey, Adrian, help us suss out some type of grading criteria, or in sports, there's definitive ways that things you need to hit first before you can be considered. How would you like to see that happen with the Barbecue Hall of Fame?
Right. Well, so going with their existing categories right now. So for legacy, I would say you have to have maybe, be in the barbecue game for at least 20 years, doing your thing. Like maybe set a time requirement there. For restaurants, I think also a time factor would help. And then also, mainly with the competitive stuff, I think you have to have a certain number of contests in order to make it in. I have my own mixed feelings about competitive barbecue. I don't know if it's a representative slice, but it's a whole thing now. But that's a great question, man. I guess I haven't really given it deep thought. But I've thought more about the legacies, because that's where most of the people that I want to see celebrated, that's probably where they would fit in given the current categories. So I think there needs to be at least a certain amount of time. And that goes to my idea that you have to have a body of work in order to be inducted.
So the IBCA, or the International Barbecue Cookers Association, unveiled their own Hall of Fame maybe a little over a year ago.
Oh.
Does that kind of dilute the talent pool, or make it weird for the other Hall of Fame, or can you have multiple barbecues Halls of Fames?
Yeah, I think it would be great if we had one. I think that would be cleaner and a lot easier. But I'll have to look at the IBCA.
Yep.
Is that what you said?
Yep.
Yeah. I'll have to look at what their list is. If they're more diverse, then I'm all for it, because I just think that there's a lot of great people doing barbecue, and I don't think we should celebrate just a narrow slice of the barbecue world.
You had mentioned you're in the process of a new book. When is that going to be potentially released?
Probably not till 2020. I'm on the ground floor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just getting started. I'm going to do barbecue research trips, and the number of trips depends on the advance that I get from publishers. So I'm still negotiating the book deal itself. But I know there's some places I definitely want to go because the stories are there. But I hope to hit at least 7 cities, maybe even up to 15. And a couple of things that I'm looking at are, one, is there a separate African-American barbecue aesthetic that kind of plays out regardless of region? Personally, my own bias going into this, and my theory,
Yep,
is that when you go to an African-American barbecue joint, you're pretty much expecting ribs, chicken, and sausage. I don't think most people are expecting brisket. Now, that may be changing because brisket is so popular, but we'll see. And I want to find these entrepreneurs that have been doing their thing. Unlike, I think, other segments of our population, women have been big time in African-American barbecue for a long time. And so I'm going to celebrate that. I'm going to do a chapter on church barbecue. For whatever reason, a lot of people called to preach the word of God believe that they're called to smoke meat as well. So I want to dive into that. So yeah, I'm excited, man. When I did my soul food research, I went to 150 soul food restaurants, but often I would go eat barbecue because barbecue is my first love. So I've done a lot of research in the areas you think about, but I don't think areas that have a lot of African-American barbecue people, places like Chicago and Houston, I don't think they're celebrated. When you say Texas barbecue, I think people automatically go to Central Texas.
correct. Adrian Miller joining me here on the show. You can find him on the Twitter at Soul Food Scholar. Definitely worth a follow if you want some insightful, good, solid stuff, not the mindless drivel that you get all around Twitter otherwise. And he's a first-timer right here on the show. Adrian, really appreciate the time tonight. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you so much. Peace.
You got it. There he is, Adrian Miller. First-timer bringing the heat.
All guests appear via the Traeger Grills hotline.
Like it. Yes.
Yummy.
So we're talking about diversity here on the show, of course. And he's in the middle, or as he said, on the ground floor of a new book. So we will follow the progress there. Got a feeling that's not going to be his last time on the show if he wants to come back. Ben Volpe coming up out of the break. Let me talk to you quickly about Big Papa Smokers, the one-stop online shop for all things barbecue. Their curated selection of only the best outdoor cooking and grilling supplies get you on the path to better barbecue results in no time. Everything at BigPapaSmokers.com has been Pitmaster approved by Sterling Big Papa Ball himself. From award-winning rubs and sauces to American-made grill smokers, Big Papa's has something you need or want to be a better outdoor cook. How about spices and seasoning? Certainly, they have the Big Papa Smokers line, Sweet Money, Cattle Prod, Cash Cow, just a few names, all proven on the competition circuit and in the backyard. They just won in my backyard over the weekend. Also, if you want to improve your competition barbecue recipes, Big Papa's has combined forces with fellow rub company Simply Marvelous Barbecue to form what is now known as the West Coast Offense. If you're looking for a brand new sauce, how about the award-winning Granny's barbecue sauce? Looking for a new go-to barbecue sauce that will please everyone? Granny's traditional yet powerful flavors remind us why we fell in love with barbecue in the first place. You can find Granny's barbecue sauce and other top-rated barbecue sauces at BigPapaSmokers.com. And aside from their premium selection of rubs and sauces, they got cookers. How about a versatile one known as the Mac 2-Star Pellet Grill? That's right. Big Papa Smokers is the exclusive Mac dealer and even offers special packages. Not a fan of pellet smokers? Take a look at the old Hickory Ace BP. It's the only charcoal smoker that Big Papa trusts on his competition barbecue trailer. And if you're a backyard hack like me looking for a durable and versatile grill that will last forever, the M Grill from Texas is just what you need. They're built like tanks, seen them in person. Not sure what kind of grill you need? Can't go wrong with any of those that are featured on BigPapaSmokers.com. They have something for every kind of backyard cook and budget. It's basically clear that Big Papa Smokers is the place to go for all things barbecue. Every product featured on their website hand-selected to help you barbecue better. Any questions, give them a call at 877-828-0727. That's 877-828-0727, or shop their website, BigPapaSmokers.com. That's BIGPOPPA Smokers.com. Type 1 diabetes and Ben Volpe talk coming up right out of the break. Stick around.
Ready to get on the air? Call 216-220-0966. Now, let's get back to the LeBron James of barbecue talk. Craig Rampey.
This portion of the show being brought to you by CookinPellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets for all of your pellet-driven cookers. Traegers and Green Mountains and Cook Shacks and Camp Chefs and you name it. You can get them at CookinPellets.com, or you can purchase at Amazon.com as well. Little upstart. You ever heard of it? CookinPellets.com. Don't forget to download their free app. This show is by and large a barbecue and grilling show covering the various activities of the industry, but it's not always a barbecue and grilling show. Over the past number of years, you've gotten to know my cousin Scott Volpe, who has a son that was diagnosed with type 1 juvenile diabetes about 8 years ago, and he comes on to talk about that life change and what him and his wife, Erin, have had to do from that point forward. This year, Scott handing the reins to the man himself, Ben, to come on and talk about it. And yes, once again, I am asking for your support here in a financial sense. This is a link on the Facebook page that my guys are sharing right now, so be sure to hit that up. Let's go ahead and race to the hotline and welcome first-timer to the show, Ben Volpe. Ben, how are you, buddy?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fabulous, Ben. Appreciate you making time this evening. I'm not keeping you up late from like school or anything. Are you out right now?
No. I think I end next week.
You think? You don't have that like marked down, ready to go, counting down the hours?
It's a little fuzzy by the end of the year.
Yeah, I hear that. I was once there about 100 years ago, so I dig it. I dig it. So, Ben, a lot of different places we want to run here tonight, and I guess first and foremost, let's talk about Ben's Avengers. Where did the name come from? And, of course, have you ever thought about using that secondarily as a name for a rock band?
Well, no, I've been trying to play the guitar for about a year. I think I learned what one of the strings was called, but
Great.
Ben's Avengers, the name actually came from my dad. We were just watching the Avengers movie, thinking of a name, and it just sort of popped in there.
So you're going to be doing this big Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation walk on June 10th, if I'm not mistaken. Is that the correct date?
Yes.
Okay, and then there is also each year you guys set your financial goal. What's the monetary goal that you're looking to hit this year?
The goal for this year is $6,000, but we're not against raising it if we have to.
Yeah, I heard that. Where is the current donation pool at right now? Like, how much do we need to overcome, or how much do we need to make up gap-wise to at least hit the goal before we start putting you over?
So far, we've raised about $3,700 this year.
Nice. And you're traditionally like one of the high watermark earners within your group, right?
Yeah, we're usually up in the top 3.
If you don't mind, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about type 1 diabetes, a little bit of a brief outline or description. I think there can be some confusion with people that don't really have a lot of big medical background. You hear a lot about type 2 diabetes. You hear about type 1 when somebody has it because you hear, oh, that's real dangerous. And I'm sure type 2 obviously is dangerous in its own accord, but what can you tell us about the differences between the two?
Well, for starters, type 1 diabetes can be mostly hereditary, but that's not to say type 2 can't be either. Type 1, there is no cure. It's permanent. You have to live with it for the rest of your life. But type 2 can sometimes be fluctuated with dieting and exercise and all that sort of stuff.
So you just hit the diabetes lottery. Great.
Yeah,
Great.
Pretty much. I'm a naturally unlucky person.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and, it was 8 years ago, right, that you were first diagnosed. So are you 14 now or 15?
Yeah, 14.
Okay, so you were 6 years old when this happened. So I don't know where the recollection meter falls here, but do you remember when you went to the doctor, or do you remember anything leading up to the diagnosis where you felt sluggish or didn't feel like you had normally felt prior to getting that diagnosis?
Well, the most obvious symptom was I was lucky. I was just seeing spots. My doctor caught it early and was able to check my sugar before I would get into the 700s or anything. I was only at 200 something.
Mm-hmm.
The most I remember from the hospital though that day was just wanting chicken fingers for a long time. But I did remember really having no idea what it was for a long time, but I learned quick.
So was it a year before you understood, or was it even longer than a couple of years and you just had your parents coming in and sticking you with this thing all the time?
Well, at first I was terrified of the needles, which is not good considering I would have to poke myself in the finger about 5, 6, 7 times a day.
Yeah.
I started wearing Band-Aids on all my fingers where I'd poke myself. By the end of a week, I would have Band-Aids on every finger. But it took me about a month to sort of get an understanding of what was happening. And once again, I got really lucky. I didn't get sick or anything. I didn't need to use insulin for almost 5 months.
Ben Volpe joining me here on the show. If you are on Facebook right now and my embedded correspondents have put up those links, please feel free to click on those and help donate here. Let's generate as much as we can during these 2 hours, a little telethon thing going on. Ben, so how does a testing process or a day-to-day, look like for you, and how has that evolved from when it was probably mostly your parents taking out? Now you're 14, you have more of a buy-in on your end to make sure that things are going right, and you have now a whole bunch of experience behind you. How has that process started and to how it began to where you're at today?
Well, when it first began, I didn't do much of it myself. My parents would have to check me in the fingers, but now I do it almost without thinking. It's like a second nature. I have to check myself before I eat and give myself insulin through an injection shot or my insulin pump. And I have to check during the night a couple times to make sure I don't go low or high during the night. That's usually my parents' job. But other than that, I can change my injection site myself, and I've really just got a handle on it to the point where I can do most of it independently.
So medical technology has obviously, you know, every year it gets better. It gets better. There weren't pumps back in the day. It was all shots, I would imagine, at one point. Was the pump like a really big deal for you, both in like, oh my God, I have this thing on me now? I mean, I get it's going to help me keep me safe and kind of do some things that I take responsibility off of me. But then on the other hand, you're like, damn it, I got to wear this pump. And, you know, like Johnny and Timmy don't have to wear this. Why do I have to wear it?
Yeah, I have been told it looks like a fanny pack when I wear it around my waist, but you get used to it. At first, I was a little bummed that I have to wear it, but I got used to not having to get a needle every time I wanted to eat something. But because before, the only way to get the insulin in to cover the food that I was eating was through an injection shot. But by using this insulin pump, I only have to change it every 2 or 3 days. So it gives me a break on my end, and it's way easier than calculating out and doing all the math and everything.
So this is something you just like take off the top, is like a sub-Q kind of a stick or a patch or something like that?
Yeah, the one I use right now is a little like a plastic pod that it's like almost like an IV. It sticks the needle in you and then inserts a little tube and pulls the needle right out, so the insulin can go through the machine into the tube and into my body.
And that does it automatically?
Yeah, I have to put in how many carbs I'm eating, so that and then it calculates the correct amount of insulin in accordance with how many units per carb I usually intake.
So not only are you having to worry about the medicine, but you're also like nutritionist Ben. You have to calculate carbs and sugars and all this other stuff. You just can't eat what you want and then hope everything's good.
Yeah, it's not as bad as a lot of people really think. I just have to read the carb count labels and count out all my cereal and servings and everything in a day.
What is that? The biggest drag is not just being able to be a little bit spontaneous. You kind of have to have something in the back of your mind to keep you on guard so something bad doesn't happen.
Yeah, I honestly think it's helped me though in the long run. I'll be more aware, and honestly, I'll be more prepared for life.
From a activities perspective, I mean, a lot of people that are listening here to the show don't know who you are, and I don't want them like following you or anything like that on social media because it's creepy, but I get to watch you. I mean, you're highly active. You're kind of a decorated athlete. So having this hasn't also stymied any of your other activities. You're a high-level functioning teenager.
Yeah, it can get in the way, but I've just learned to sort of move through it. Like for soccer, it'll pull me off the field if I'm low or anything, but I'll get right back into it. I just ran a half marathon the other week, and it was a bummer because every couple miles I would have to stop. I think I had to stop like 4 or 5 times to check my blood sugar and make sure I wasn't going low, and to the point where I was getting dizzy while running. But other than that, it just sort of, you just got to power through it.
Hey, you want to hear a fun fact?
Sure.
I ran a half marathon 2 weeks ago. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Good for you. Have you have you ever thought like, why me, or can you not live like that?
I used to for a while. I used to, because for a long time I was the only person I ever knew who really had this thing, but then I realized it's not so bad. I can get used to it, and it'll prepare me for more dangerous things in the long run.
Do you think it was awesome that your parents were sacrificing? This is where I'm going to stick up for your dad. That your parents would come in like overnight, and I guess it's from what you just said, it sounds like they're still coming in once or twice in the middle of the night to check you out, to make sure that everything's good. Obviously, they have the vested interest in keeping their kid healthy because it's their kid. But I mean, trust me, I know some parents I know a dad who has type 1 diabetes and his kids have it. He is very irresponsible. Your dad might have shared some stories about this peach. But you have parents that are invested and good support system. So it's kind of important, right? To when you're diagnosed here and you're doing your part, you want to have that good support system behind you, right?
Definitely. It honestly means the world to me because it allows me to sleep during the night like a normal kid instead of worrying about it. Honestly, for a while I used to be worried about going low in the middle of the night, but then I realized they wouldn't ever let me do that. So
Ben Volpe joining me here on the show. Ben, are there telltale signs? You had talked about seeing spots, not necessarily from a sugar standpoint, but are there anything that you know or that you can share with our listeners here tonight that if something feels like this or looks like this, you want to go and get checked?
Well, one, frequent urination. It's a pain in the butt, but you'll have frequent urination. I still have it all the time, but if you ever have like really bad stomach aches for long periods of time, just go to the doctors and get your sugar checked. Maybe even like vomiting, nausea. It really depends. Headaches, all kinds of stuff.
So there's really like no one telltale sign that says, oh, you definitely have it or, oh, you definitely don't. You just kind of monitor, and if you're seeing some of these symptoms, as you'd mentioned, go ahead and get checked out for safety's sake.
Right.
Yep. This is a barbecue and grilling show, Ben. I didn't know if you knew that, but do you have favorite barbecue or grilled foods?
You know, I do like possum, but I gotta say I'm gonna go.
That
with
is
the pulled
such
pork.
a lie. What are you talking about? That's a great pull. He said possum in case anybody missed it. You're a fan of pulled pork?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're really gonna dig into the depths here. How is that prepared? Does the word crock pot happen to grace our dictionary?
No. My uncle has a smoker. He's smoked pulled pork before. It was really good.
This is your mom's brother, right?
My mom's sister's husband.
Your mom's sister's husband. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I knew there was no way that Bill Volpe was smoking anything. Well, that's not true. Never mind. Ben Volpe is here on the show. We're talking about type 1 diabetes. And we are appealing to you for fundraising this evening all the way through the show. So the links are up on my Facebook page as you're watching this live video here this evening. I'm asking that you're clicking on either the juvenile, am I saying that right? The JDRF website link that we have also through the Facebook page. And make sure you give Barbecue Central a shout out as you're donating so Ben can see that the Centralites are in full force. But man, you did it. You were awesome. You brought the heat. Brought the information. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I just want to thank everyone who's donated so far and for the upcoming donations. It means a lot.
All right, Ben. Thanks, man.
Yep.
There he is, Ben Volpe. I don't know about you, but my man nailed it.
Guests appear via the Traeger Grills hotline.
I got to be honest. 14 years old, I don't know what to expect from 14 years old. I got to be honest. Could have been, yep. Nope. Not really. I'd be like, uh-oh. Nope. Ben's a good guest. I mean, I would rather not be talking about that with him because he has it. We would rather wipe type 1 off the face of the earth if possible. That's why we want you to donate tonight. We want the tally. Hit up the links for JDRF on the Facebook page and also for the Facebook donations that the embedded correspondents are kicking up there during the feed. Let me talk to you quickly about the Barbecue Guru. They have always believed that outdoor cooking should be easy because it can be, especially with the Monolith Barbecue Guru Edition grill. Now, what is that, you ask? Let me tell you. The Monolith is the world's first temperature-controlled smoker with built-in power draft fan. This means smarter control and greater freedom with automatic temperature controls. Easily choose your cooking time and temperature and let the Monolith do the work of a sous chef or a barbecue pitmaster. With minimal effort, you now have oven-like precision at the grill You can serve the tastiest, juiciest meals each and every time. Here's how you do it. You hit the website bbqguru.com. That's bbqguru.com, or call 800-288-GURU. That's 800-288-GURU. If you have any questions, if you don't buy the monolith, if you already had an existing cooker and you want to put a Guru temperature control device on it, don't guess. If you have any questions, call them. Get the first-class customer support that I've been seeing on Facebook recently. Guru's getting hyped up with their customer support, which I love. Then you can make sure that you're getting the right stuff. They'll have you up and running right out of the box. Now, if you get the monolith and you already have a Guru temperature controller, you don't have to go buy a new controller. You can use the one that you have. Wire it to the fan, and away you go. Plus, the monolith comes with a crazy amount of great accessories, a nest. You're not just getting the cooker and then, hey, you're going to have to buy thousands of dollars worth of accessories to actually make this thing usable. No, we're not rolling like that here. The website, bbqguru.com. The phone number, 800-288-GURU. We're back to wrap the first hour. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Big name interviews, advice on cooking brisket and ribs, and the only host willing to share his honest opinion on all things important in the world of barbecue. It's the Barbecue Central Show.
Hey, the National Barbecue News is dedicated to all things barbecue. Their goal is to introduce new people to the barbecue world while keeping the barbecue enthusiast and professional informed on all the current happenings in and around Barbecue Nation. They obtain this goal by offering timely news stories, new product reviews, barbecue event calendar, and unique recipes inside their printed products, websites, social media pages, and email newsletters. Subscribe now by visiting barbecuenews.com. That's barbecuenews.com. Kale Felt! Kale! John Dawson weighing in, subject line, you know you're dedicated when you strap on the cans to catch BCRN live at your daughter's commencement. John, what are you doing? Dad, did you see me when they called my name? No. I was listening to Rempe rant about some frivolous whatnot. No, honey, I missed that part when you got the diploma. Rempe was talking about Columbus Hill smoking bear and possums. I missed it. Can you go back and do that again? John, look at you, man. Appreciate you. Shout out, John Dawson. At his daughter's commencement, listening to the show in Boise. Damn, John. Dangerous. Living dangerous. All right, thanks again to my last segment guest, Ben Volpe, for joining me. Again, pump the brakes on the barbecue, although we did talk a little bit of possum barbecue, very little bit, right at the end. That was great. So please, if you're watching on the Facebook feed, go ahead and hit up the links. There is a Facebook donation page, so if you're on Facebook, easy to go there, right? All legitimate. Or if you want to make sure it's double legit, click on the JDRF link that is also being put in the feed and donate something. $5, $10, $100. Again, if you can show that you make a $500 donation all by yourself, prove it to me. I will match your $500 donation with $500 of my own. Cash money. I got it in the bank. You know I got it in the bank. I got it. All right, we're loading up here for the second hour. We may or may not have a special sports guest at the top of the hour. I don't like to talk sports too much on the show, but given recent events, and if I can actually raise him up, we'll be talking about some sporting stuff. Anyway, listening and watching the Barbecue Central show right here on the Barbecue Central Network. Stick around. Be right back.
This is Bobby. And this is Jennifer. And we're from Cleveland, Ohio. And you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish. What?
He ate sushi or wiener.
But listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
All right, welcome to the second hour. Here we go. This is the Barbecue Central Show. Welcome aboard. If you missed the first hour, shame on you. We talked with Adrian Miller about Columbus Hill and who he is and what his history was and how he had his barbecue reputation sullied by a 20,000, 30,000. How many people were... Okay, so it was originally planned for 20,000 VIPs, but 50,000 people showed up. Alcohol was passed out to get people to chill out. That never works. And then a riot ensued. His legacy, a tad tarnished. Then he did smaller parties after that. Go back and get that first hour if you missed it. And you're getting this podcast out of order. This will be Thursday's show coming up. Adrian Miller absolutely killed it. Great first-time guest. And then following Adrian was Ben Volpe. We talked about type 1 diabetes 6 years ago. He's 14 now. 6 years ago, he was 8 years ago, he was diagnosed with juvenile type 1 diabetes. Maybe I'm not saying that right, but it's type 1 regardless. We talked about his diagnosis leading up, what it was like, what his day-to-day is like. Also, we are trying to raise funds here in this Barbecue Central Show themed telethon / TV-thon, whatever. If you're on Facebook right now, you can hit up my page and watch the live stream. There are links being thrown up there throughout the show. One is through a Facebook donation page. One is also through the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation page, the JDRF page. So if you feel more comfortable donating through there, that's fine. I am asking possibly if you give some type of mention to Barbecue or Central Light or something. A lot of you guys like to be anonymous. I get it. I just want to make sure that the people know that the Central Lights are out in full force supporting Ben and what he has had to put up with for the last 8 years, and also trying to increase the efforts of wiping up and out type 1 diabetes if at all possible. And that kind of helps with your cash for research and all that stuff. So again, if you can prove to me you made a one-time $500 donation, I will match your $500 donation. I only do that once because I'm only, so rich. So that's what happened in the first hour. Still to come on this here show, Doug Schediing will be joining me. We'll be talking a little bit about Traeger. We'll be talking a little bit about his past weekend's success at the Bandera Rodeo, I think it was, or something Bandera-like, if I'm not mistaken. And then we will close the show with Chris LaRocco from Trey Fuels. That's the company that secured the sole manufacturing of Kingsford wood pellets. He's a first-timer. A lot of first-timers tonight. Doug is the only mainstay. Everybody else first-timer of the show. That's great. All right, let me see here. I got a phone call coming in. So in celebration of the Cavaliers making it to a fourth straight NBA final against the Warriors. Not too enthused about that. Somehow I have landed Christopher Mad Dog Russo on the phone to give me some breakdown and some thoughts and all of that stuff. So, oh my goodness. How excited are we?
Everybody, Chris Mad Dog Russo here with you, and I'm here on the great Barbecue Central radio networks talking a little bit about sports. Of course, if you are a fan of Mad Dog Unleashed, you can hear me on the great Sirius XM from 3 to 6 Eastern Time, and I'm here to talk about the great NBA Finals that are going to be taking place here in 2 days' time. So a quick turnaround for the Golden State Warriors, and I gotta tell you here, my friends, these are not the Warriors that we have once known. They are not nearly as deep. I thought Houston really did kind of a choke job. James Harden and the rest of the team, three-point shooting dynamics, absolutely shooting the lights out during the regular season, and then in the finals, the conference finals, didn't show up. Had a little lackluster shooting performance, and I think that ended up catching them up. And next thing you know, you got Hubba-doo, and Golden State is back in the finals on the Eastern Conference. Then we look at the Eastern side, and you got the Cleveland Cavaliers led by LeBron James. Oh, he's the king. You know, I thought I was the king of talk radio. Evidently not. Now, I got to tell you, in the East, you know, the East gets a lot of static saying that it doesn't have the competition that the Western Conference has, and that was your finals that we just showed. Houston and Golden State, but I'm here to tell you that's not the case. I think LeBron James has something to prove, and he's going to take his Cavaliers to the next level. He's got a bunch of different recruits. He's only had it. Remember, this Cleveland Cavaliers team has only been around for half a season, and they are yet back in the NBA Finals once again. For how many times, let me ask you a fun fact, how many times has LeBron James been in the NBA Finals over the last 8 years? If you answered 8, you're correct. Where's that sound effect coming from? I'm just kidding. 8 years he's been to the finals. And I'm telling you right now, he should be NBA MVP. His season is absolutely tremendous. Oh, absolutely tremendous. And I'm not going to sit here and lollygag at you when I sit here and tell you that there's probably a 75% chance that the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be walking away NBA champions this year. Okay? You can take that to the bank. Let's not talk about $500 donations. Let's talk about real money coming to Mad Dog Russo when I win my bets in Vegas, because I'm calling the Cleveland Cavaliers winning in 6 games. That's right.
6 games, Mad Dog?
That's right. Look, get off my microphone. Here, I'm calling in. I'm doing you a favor. I'm taking the first segment in the second hour off of your chest, okay? Let the guy that runs the great Sirius XM finish up his segment here talking about sports, okay? You never talk about sports. Don't even talk about it. Anyway, I say it. I'm going to stand firm. I'm going to give you my high line right now, Cavs in 6. And I don't think it's even going to be that close. I think the Cavs are going to go to Golden State here on Thursday. Probably lose the first game. A little bit of rust to knock off. Got a game plan a little bit. And then they'll probably split the series. Then they come back to Cleveland. They'll win both in Cleveland. You go 2-1, they'll win back again in Golden State, and then they'll close it out in Cleveland this time. Remember 2016? They won at Golden State. Finally, the Cleveland Cavaliers will win in front of their hometown. And I'm not going to sit there and say that Cleveland's going to burn to the ground. You know, this isn't Detroit. Or all those other places that don't know how to celebrate in a great way, okay? But the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to win in 6. This is Christopher Mad Dog Russo. And I'm very excited to take time here on the Barbecue Central show. Thank you very much. I've had a little bit of tough time getting out here. All right. I'm going to turn it back over to the man that talks about barbecue and grilling like no other, Greg Rempe. Mad Dog Russo, I'm out of here.
Wow, that was Christopher Mad Dog Russo right there, in case you missed him. Wow. I had no firm answer that he was actually going to call in and do the segment. But thank God. Either that or somebody did kind of a terrible impression. Did he say calves in 6?
The only show giving you a monthly visit from a doctor of barbecue.
Hold on.
A man actually named me.
Now, wait. Hold on. He said calves in 6, right? Yeah. All right. Hey, I would love to see that. By the way, I'm not necessarily averse to that mindset. I think they might win 2 in Golden State. LeBron James, man on a mission. Green Mountain Grills is what we're talking about right now. 3 different sizes to choose from if you're so inclined. You have the Jim Bowie, which is the big ship of the bunch. You have the Daniel Boone's, which is the medium. Then you have the Davy Crockett, which is your tailgate style or your mobile unit, if you will. If you're somebody that likes to hunt and camp or just be mobile at any notice, the Davy Crockett's the one you're going to want to take around. If you don't have access to traditional plug power, you can use the 12-volt adapter right in your vehicle. And you don't have to sacrifice quantity for portability, which is great. You can put a couple pork butts on that bad boy and you're off and running. You can serve 50 people with 2 pork butts, depending on how much you eat. I mean, if you eat a lot, might be 30 people. Still, 2 pork butts feeds a lot of people. Inexpensive as well. Then you have the Daniel Boone and the Jim Bowie. Both of those will accommodate, you know, Daniel Boone more than Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie more than the Daniel Boone. Sorry. Yeah, the Daniel Boone. Both of those, however, you can rip the guts out and buy that pizza insert, $120 I'm seeing on Amazon right now. Are you kidding me? This thing turns your Green Mountain Grill into a gourmet, high-heat pizza oven. You like those Neapolitan-style pies that are all the rage right now in the live fire cooking and grilling community? Get your dough, roll it out, put on your toppings, lightly sauce, maybe some fresh mozzarella, a gabagol, a capace. Put it in the oven. And away you go. 3 minutes later, maybe, you got fresh pizza ready to go. Pizza party. You can do multiple pizzas in, you can do like 10 pizzas in 20 minutes. Maybe more than that, depending on how heat or how high you're running the cooker. Rule of thumb, wherever the cooker is set at on the temperature, double in the oven. So 350, get you 700 in the oven. Real easy. Head on over to greenmountaingrills.com. That's greenmountaingrills.com. And check out all the products offerings, and then find a dealer. They sell through dealers. Now, the pizza oven insert you can get online, of course, because that's an accessory, but grills sold through dealers. Looking to line up Jason Baker here shortly, actually, to catch up on business with Green Mountain Grills. Doug Schediing coming up out of the break, pitmaster of Rogue Cookers. Stick around. We'll be right back.
The only show giving you a monthly visit from a doctor of barbecue. A man actually named Meathead. the author of a barbecue Bible, bloggers, reviewers, competitors, and manufacturers by the dozens. It's the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Hey, Smoking with Smithfield committed cooks, make sure to head to smokingwithsmithfield.com and report your first place wins to claim your prizes. Have you registered to compete in the American Royal Pork Loin Ancillary? Smithfield just increased the prize purse to $6,000. Make sure to sign up at the American Royal website today. And don't forget to sign up for the Smokin' with Smithfield Classic, which will be in Richmond, Virginia. That's a Commonwealth. On September 29th. To sign up, reach out to Jesse with Big Papa Smokers at jesse@bigpapasmokers.com. All right. Joining me now to talk a little show karma, to talk a little Traeger grills, and other stuff is the official Texas embedded correspondent of this show, Doug Schediing. Doug, how are you, buddy?
Doing well. Good evening, Greg.
Good evening to you. Happy to have you aboard as always, Doug. Appreciate you turning it around in successive weeks. You know, the rest of the tools don't get to do that. You know what I'm saying? Nice shirt, by the way. We're trading shirts here. I'm Road Cooker, your Horse Meat 2018 or 2017?
2017, but still a hit at the Kentucky Derby and Preakness parties that I went to.
Yeah, so, like, what was that like? People asking you about it, or were they shy and didn't want to start that conversation, or what?
Oh, no, several people asked me about it, and so I asked them, that I was for the ethical and humane slaughter of horses, and that here in the U.S., and, rather than shipping them to Canada and Mexico for slaughter or burning them out in the back of the field. And they would just kind of look at me and say, what? I said, well, have you really thought of what happens to a horse when they die? And they're like, no, we hadn't really thought about it. And I'm like, well, there's nothing better than horse tartar.
Right.
Just ask the Europeans.
Just ask the Europeans. We love the Europeans for that. For not much else, but for that for sure. All right, Doug,
Yes.
So let's talk about the show karma. Last week I had to, in the show open, get out in front of what was a barrage of emails of people saying, oh, Melissa Cookson was on your show last Tuesday, and she didn't win, and the show karma's BS, and blah, blah, blah. Well, lo and behold, a handsome man named Doug Schediing does my show, as he does the fourth Tuesday of every month. Bonus Tuesday this month, we get 5 instead of 4. You didn't say anything about going to a barbecue competition this past weekend. You didn't ask to do any type of promo and or otherwise. And you summarily went out and placed 3rd overall in your cook-off. I mean,
Yes,
if there
we did.
isn't a better case for show karma just attaching itself to good people, I don't know what better example to prove.
It just showed the haters that it does exist. But perhaps next time I'll ask for a little karma, and that'll just give me the extra push to get over.
Where were you at this past weekend?
I was at the Bandera Rodeo. That's in Bandera, Texas, about an hour outside of San Antonio. So it's one I've done since I think this is my 8th or 9th year in a row. Most memorable is 2 years ago when we got stuck in a flood there for 17 hours after the cook-off. So yeah, we reserved that year. So I've reserved it 3 times, and I was hoping to improve on it and get a belt buckle. So I've got 3 belt buckles from them.
Is there cash that goes along with it, or is Texas really more about the belt buckles and not the cash?
There are a few contests that are about the cash, but it's always about the nice belt buckles, because they actually are made by a company in Bandera called Hio Silver that makes the belt buckles for the PBR, the Professional Bull Riding Association.
Oh, really?
So these are really nice, have the gold and rubies and very nice. So yeah, I've got 3 of those. So I was hoping to get one more. I was in the lead until the last 2 calls, and a couple of my friends leapfrogged me. So Can Heat, Kit Polk of Can Heat, you know him, and then JD Williamson. So yeah.
These are IBCA contests?
Actually, no. It was an
Texas?
IBCA last year. It was a Lone Star contest. So yeah, it was a Lone Star, but had a lot of categories. So there were 8 turn-ins, believe it or not. Obviously, 3 only counted towards the grand champion, but there were 5 other ancillary categories that we also entered as well. Of course, pinto beans, and we always have pinto beans.
What is the status of Texas competition barbecue right now?
I think from the standpoint of most of the people are still leaning towards IBCA, and so the LSBS does have not as many contests as they did last year, but they are there are some stalwarts, and like this one that went back to Lone Star, but most of the cook-offs in Texas are still IBCA.
Do you see any growth whatsoever of KCBS pushing in at all, or is whatever they have on the docket pretty much standard year after year?
I see a few of the cooks wanting to cook more KCBS, primarily because they get the scoring, so that after the cook-off, different than in IBCA, where if you're not on the final table, which is, maybe the last 18 or 20 in our, suicide round kind of thing, that you don't know where you finish. So you could have finished 21st, or you could have finished dead ass last. You just don't know. So a lot of people like the KCBS, where you do get some feedback and you get scores, no matter where you finish.
Are they still as popular, the Texas competitions, when you look at just a sheer amount of teams entering in versus a sanctioning body like a Kansas City Barbecue Society? Texas typically has way more teams at any singular event than a KCBS event does. Still the same thing right now?
I would say the IBCA is still, keeping a lot of the high end number of cooks at a cook-off. LSBS is probably a little lower. I was actually going to have this as one of my segments or takes on our embedded correspondent, is that I think we're seeing a little bit of a die down in the number of cooks out there. So like, in some of the last 2 or 3 cooks, a lot of times you'll go out there and you've got some bubbas out there, as I'll call them, and they're out there to party. They've got their offset cooker, and it's billowing white smoke and everything, and you're like, yeah, turn on the disco ball, let's party. And they're not probably going to do well the next day. So but they help towards the numbers.
How many other events do you have competition wise on the docket here over the next handful of months?
Well, it was hot almost all over the U.S. this past weekend.
Yeah,
so It was about like 97, 98 degrees, and losing 5 pounds of water weight on a Friday and Saturday isn't great fun for me. But I'm going to probably take off June and July and August from a competitive standpoint. But we'll be attending a couple of special events, and then obviously going to some of the Traeger classes as well. Teaching some of those.
Let's talk about Traeger here just for a second. We'll talk about the shop classes here in just a moment. But in regards to the cookers, we've obviously talked I don't know if we've talked about it specifically, but Chad has talked about it a little bit. There's been the pro line of cookers, which I think we would probably agree, if you're looking to step into the pellet cooker portion, maybe you have a charcoal cooker and you have a gas grill and you've heard about these pellet cookers. This is probably a step that you want to take, unless you just have mad cash and you feel pretty good about your skills and you just want to jump into the Timberline section. The pro is probably like a good stepping stone to gauge whether you think you're going to like pellet cookers, and then you could probably step into that Timberline. What do you like about the pro series?
Oh, the pro series, they're workhorses. Number one, the older grill models have the straight legs. Traeger came out with the Pro Series, and it's got the sawhorse legs. They're actually much more sturdy, especially if you're going to transport them around. And so that they have the Pro 22 and the Pro 34, and you can get a second shelf on each of those. But those are workhorses. They have the new controller, which is a little more accurate in terms of, if you set it at 275, it's going to stay pretty close to 275. And so those two grills are a good entry level. And a lot of times people buy the Pro 22. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're, just going to cook a little bit at home. You're almost always going to want a little extra space in my view. So even if you're leaning towards the Pro 22, I think the Pro 34 is $999. And, like on Father's Day, they do $100 off and those sorts of things. So, or throw in a free cover, front shelf, etc.
So what kind of a capacity, if you could paint that picture, sometimes people don't have access to a computer or a smartphone, they're driving, listening to the show. How much meat can you put in a 22 versus a 34?
22, you could probably get 3 racks of ribs across, maybe 4, but front to back. I always cut my ribs into 10 bones, and so I do them front to back. On a Pro 34, you could probably get 5, maybe 6 going across, and then you could probably get 2 on top. Now, if you use like a rib rack, I've cooked 16 racks in a Pro 34 before using the 2 Traeger rib racks, which are like $25 a piece. So, and they came out great.
Then you have the Timberline models. Obviously, we've hyped those up here on the show, and they're out. They're doing really well. I have an 850, which I'm really falling madly in love with. It cooks very evenly. The capacity is great. You can remove the shelves easily depending on what you're cooking, or maybe you just don't want it in there because of whatever it is you're cooking. You just want the extra top space to work around with. What do you think sets the Timberline apart from some of the other pellet cookers out there on the market today? Because, from a visual standpoint, it doesn't have like a visual smokestack that you see on one side of the cooker. It's all vented out of the back because of that special smoke burn technology.
Correct. Yeah. They put over $5 million, and they being the new group that purchased Traeger about 4 years ago, they put about over $5 million in R&D into this particular smoker. So it's built like a tank. The Ear 850 weighs 213 pounds, I believe.
It's heavy.
The 1300 weighs like 270. So it's built like a tank. And, previously Yoder's had always been, kind of had that reputation as being, built heavy, et cetera. So, with the Timberline, it's double insulated. And I actually think that really helps from the standpoint of keeping humidity in the chamber, because I've actually got 3 850s that I use in my competition. I have two and one backup. So I've got, you always have to have a backup. So I use those exclusively in my competitions. And I think that with the double insulation, it keeps a more humidity. So I typically cook overnight and I just let it go. And when I get up the next morning, a lot of times my meat is still moist and it's not dried out. With a lot of cookers, it dries out. So they've got the Wi-Fi capability, controlling things with the app. And, overall, I think they applied for like 16 patents when they released the Timberline. So, there's a lot of advanced features. I use the Super Smoke capability, which is basically between 165 and 225 that you can do a Super Smoke. And what it's, I believe it's what it's actually doing is turning on and off the fan. And if you get something done, it also has a keep warm button, so you can keep it warm, and it actually takes the temperature down. So a lot of different capabilities, in addition to the 5 inches extra vertical height, which goes into the smoke technology. So it's built more like a pill versus oval. So I think that that actually helps. It just seems really roomy inside.
Oh, absolutely. And aesthetically, it looks very roomy when you have the lid open as well. So we'll get into the cooking class here in just a second, but I know there seems to be some confusion, whether it's the Pro line or the Timberline, as you start it up. When I read my manual, it said a lid open until fire established, and then close your lid. And then I've been seeing scuttlebutt on the internet about, should the top be open, should it be down? What can you tell me as having an affiliation with Traeger?
Well, I'm not speaking on behalf of Traeger. I'm giving my opinion and what I believe to be true through use, etc., and what I've read. But let me just state that up front.
Sure.
On older models, let's say before the Pro series and the Timberline, had the older controller, and that older controller had something called what was called a P setting, and that P setting is the pause. So basically, it's set for 65 seconds, i.e., the auger will not turn except every 65 seconds. So, but you can change that, and so it's more of a manual thing, and you can change that to 45 seconds. So you can, and I always do that because I actually think that helps with flame outs, because why wouldn't you want the auger turning more often than not? Now with the newer Pro series, so you start with the lid open there because you're trying to get as much oxygen into the chamber. So that's totally true. Start with the lid open. On the Pro series and the Timberline, it's a PID controller. So what's happening is that's a closed feedback loop system. So even as you're starting up, it's learning. It's constantly learning based on the ambient temperature outside, et cetera, how many pellets to put in, and how many rotations for the auger to basically get a certain response. And so as you're starting up, you need to have it closed, whether it's the Pro or the Timberline, because it's learning. And I think what that'll help with is if you, as you're cooking, it's basically like a sinusoid, a wavy type function where it, overshooting, undershooting, and you're just trying to maintain 275. Maybe it goes 265. But if you start with the lid open, it's learning wrong. It's the error value that it's calculating, the PID controller is wrong. And so what happens is you get these large spikes. And I've gone on some of the, Reddit and Facebook, et cetera, and I've told people that were having flame out problems, in addition to that, they're not, vacuuming their grill out, but, not even getting into that subject, that to start it with the lid closed. And the last 2 or 3 people have come back to me in the last month or so and said that has absolutely helped them a lot with flame outs.
All right.
So
we'll make sure that we keep an eye on that. Next time I start mine, I will do with lid down and report back as well. Lastly, I want to talk about the Traeger Shop class. I do talk about that in the reads, of course, but you're one of those class teachers. What can one expect from a class, and where are the ones you're going to be teaching at next?
Okay. I've taught 4 this year, and the way that shop classes are done is they're done in pairs of 2. So the first night is what's considered quote unquote barbecue classics. So we will we'll do ribs, we'll do pizza, we'll do a peach cobbler that we make, and so and then a rib or ribeye roast. We will actually take a whole ribeye roast, cut it in front of the class, and then we'll take it, put it on a Timberline, super smoke it for about an hour and a half or so, and then we'll do a reverse sear in front of the class. In addition, we also do a smoked lemonade where we use some of the Traeger simple syrup in Tito's, and we'll have that for the class, and we'll teach the class. So basically, we go through the recipes in front of the class and show them how we would do it. Maybe give them some advanced tips and tricks and things like that about how to do the recipes. With your ribs, do you wrap? What do you put in the wrap? And those sorts of things for a competition, how we would do it at home. And then the second day is the Meat Masters class. And that's where we get into some of the big meats, where we have smoked lemonade again, but we have chicken, so I of course do the half chickens here in Texas, pork butt, brisket, and we also do a rib roast. And so we do a trim right in front of them. I actually inject right in front of the class. The ones that we do as demos, we actually give away at the end of the class, and people take them home. It's like this last class I did in Huntsville. The guy cooked it and sent an email in saying it was the best brisket he had ever done. So if you go to Traeger Shop class, you can look at some of the pictures and stuff that people are posting. I've had people say that it was the best $100 they ever spent, sort of thing, because you're getting a lot of tips and tricks on how to use pellet grills, whether it's a Traeger or some other grill, and also some of the competition type tricks that we may add, which can help a cook, kind of come along, whether they're a backyard cook trying to, be better for their family or be the best in their neighborhood.
And that's $100 for both days?
It's $100 per class.
Per class. Okay.
Per class.
So for the weekend, it'd be a couple, $200. That's pretty cheap.
Oh, and we feed them everything too. Yeah. So we prep everything, plus we feed them everything. So, generally the briskets are the Wagyu Snake River Farms briskets, and the so the rib roast is, I think, is actually maybe ordered from Snake River Farms too.
Wow. And then, so what do you go to TraegerGrills.com/shop class for that?
Yes.
For a schedule or whatever?
Yes, exactly. And then I think the next few are in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. There's actually a road crew that takes the Traeger trailer around the U.S. And so they're kind of making stops around the U.S. So, so there's 2 people on that. And so, either myself, Chad, Danielle, and then I think Jason's teaching a couple. So my next ones are in Montana. Let's see. And actually, my next one is at Inside Out Patio in Toronto, July 13th and 14th. And then after that, I'm doing one at Ace Hardware up in Montana in Great Falls. So,
wow.
Yeah, so yeah, it's going to be fun, actually.
No doubt.
Really fun.
Doug Schediing is the pitmaster of Road Cookers, taking a third place overall this past weekend at the Bandera Rodeo Barbecue Cook-Off. Also, he will be teaching some Traeger Shop classes coming up here in July and at points after. Doug, always appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
You got it. There he is. My guy, the official Texas embedded correspondent, Doug Schediing.
All guests
right
appear via the Traeger Grills hotline. Yummy.
Well, I don't know about you, but if you have a Traeger and you've been a newer one and you've been firing it up with the lid open because that's what the direction said, maybe there's a whole different thing that we need to be working on, like not doing that. Doing it with the lid closed. Okay. Well, I'm going to try that out probably at some point this week. Actually, it'll be tomorrow as I'm getting ready for a pork butt cater. 4 pork butts going on tomorrow. Put them on and then go to work. Hey, Cook Shack manufactures smoker ovens for barbecue lovers with any amount of experience, whether you barbecue in the backyard, on the competition circuit, or in a 5-star dining facility. Cook Shack has the unit that will do the job, and with a full line of barbecue spices, sauces, pellets, and wood chunks, it's the perfect one-stop shop. Cook Shack strives to be your barbecue resource center by offering cooking classes, online recipes, how-to videos, 2 blogs, smoke and grilling 101s, and a video cooking classroom. Check out their website at cookshack.com or follow them on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, and Google+. Get advice and share your passion for barbecue on their world-class barbecue forum. Cook Shack pellet-fired smokers are the choice of champions because they were designed by a champion, Ed Fast Eddie Moore, and the FEC 100, PG 1000, always customer favorites. The PG 1000 can double as a smoker and a grill, low and slow, hot and fast. The pellet grill line gives you the most for your money. Cook Shack residential electric smokers, the #1 smoker in the industry. High quality means high durability and versatility. Anything you can cook in your oven, you can make in a Cook Shack. Passion and dedication drives Cook Shack's manufacturing, with quality always being at the forefront. Get the best in barbecue since 1962. Call 800-423-0698 or visit the website cookshack.com. That's cookshack.com. Helping me close the show, Chris LaRocco, Trey Fuels. Stick around. Be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
This segment brought to you by Fireboard. Monitor up to 6 different temperatures simultaneously. Connect to Wi-Fi for cloud-based monitoring or connect via Bluetooth. And if you have Alexa or the Google Assistant in your home, you're in luck because Fireboard fully integrated with both. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232 today. Attention, ladies, daughters, sons, anybody who's not a father's. You want to know what to get your dad for Father's Day? The Fireboard! Thank me later. Thanks again to Doug Schediing for joining me last segment, talking about Traeger and other such stuff, learning new things. Hey, a few weeks ago I mentioned that I had been putting eyeballs on a new fuel source coming from Kingsford, the longtime charcoal manufacturing heavyweight, that being wood pellets. That was mostly confirmed last week when I saw bags of pellets, I think at Memphis in May, and then completely confirmed earlier today by my final guest of the evening. Indeed, Kingsford officially in the cooking wood pellet business. So let's go ahead and race to the Traeger Grills hotline and welcome the corporate strategist for Trey Fuels, Chris LaRocco, joining me here on the show. Chris, how are you, buddy?
Hey, doing pretty good, Greg. How are you?
Absolutely fabulous, Chris. Appreciate you making time here for the show. Kind of short notice, so I appreciate you jumping in on that. What does a corporate strategist do? That sounds very fancy.
Actually, that was an old title. I'm actually general manager of Trey Fuels and have been now for a couple of years. But what a corporate strategist does is looks outside the company for what's next and brings that into the fold. So it's always looking out towards the future and what consumers need.
So when I was visiting the website traefuels.com, which is TRAE, traefuels.com, am I correct in thinking that Trae is part of a bigger company? It's just like one shoot off?
Yeah, that is correct. Trae is a subsidiary of the parent company, Envirotech Services.
So what does Envirotech Services do, and how does Trae Fuels fit into that glove?
So Envirotech Services is a de-icing and dust control company. We produce and distribute products all from the state of Washington onto Maryland, and primarily it's used in road de-icing or for dust control on rural roads or unpaved roads, keeping drivers safe during the winter season, and we operate mostly in the snow belts.
Have you always?
And Trae Fuels was what?
No, please go ahead.
And Trae Fuels was a diversification into obviously a weather-related industry, but something that the owner of Envirotech became enamored by. Very interested in the the wood fuels, the renewable energy space. Obviously, big deal. Has been for a while, so diversified into that.
How long has Trae Fuels been part of that parent company then? Is it something that's been new-ish, or has it been pretty long-lasting at this point?
That's about 4 years in now.
Okay. So fairly new.
Yeah, fairly new, correct, yes.
So was the initial getting into it from a wood pellet heating side, like your home and stuff like that, fireplaces or wood pellet wood stoves, or was it traditionally for cooking?
No. Initially it was, as you said, for home heating. And also for the European markets. A lot of European utilities have converted from coal over to wood pellets. So that was part of the overall strategy of acquiring Trae Fuels, to be in those markets.
What process, and I'm not looking for any trade secrets here if there are any, but like what's your pellet making process?
Pellet making process is, we use pulp wood, which is, obviously the top 20 or 30, feet of the tree. And we debark it, chip it, hammer it, get it down to a fiber size that's something that can be pelletized. So it's more of a traditional operation. Some folks use only residuals that they can buy from sawmills and what have you. We do both.
Everybody likes to talk about green and sustainability and stuff like that. Like, what's the mission or the company vision there on either replacing what you're taking, or how are you taking what you're taking in order to make sure everything is sustainable?
Right. So what our supply chain looks at what would be normally left in the field or what would normally go to pulp and paper. We don't use any of the waste woods that come from local communities into our process, but we use what would be considered anything that's not used for a saw log for building materials.
When you look at other cooking pellet manufacturers, we'll do a little differentiator here. There's always initially it was pellets that had a decent base of oak for BTUs, let's say 50%, maybe 60%, and then they were putting in a certain percentage of whatever the actual flavor on the bag was, whether it be apple or cherry or hickory or you name it. But the oak was there for BTUs. The other stuff was there for the quote-unquote flavor. And then over time, I started seeing, for instance, the first time I ever saw 100% hickory pellet was from Cook Shack a number of years ago. Now, that's obviously since morphed into other pellet makers making 100% hickory or some of these other woods. Then I guess apple doesn't really generate the BTU, so you don't really want 100% apple wood, and I would assume that trickles down to some of the other species. But how is your pellet different from some of the other cooking pellets that are out there on the market?
Well, along those same lines. So when you look at what was originally available in the marketplace and still is available in the marketplace, you're absolutely correct in saying that a lot of what we consider filler woods, oak, alder, what have you, were put into the blend, and not necessarily, in my opinion, for BTU, because when we have our pellets, our 100% hickory, cherry, oak, compared to the leading brands in terms of BTU, those are right in line with the BTU values of around 8,000. So what really drives a pellet manufacturer to be able to produce a 100% species product really is the wood basket that they're in. So the wood basket that they're in and the logging operations that are nearby to help, bring that supply of cherry, apple, hickory, oak, what have you, into the facility and to be able to process it is a big deal. So what differentiates us is we saw the market, we know what other people are doing, and we thought it was a little disingenuous, because if you put hickory on the bag and it's really not hickory, then what are your meat flavors or the palette of flavors? What are you really getting there? So the concept behind bringing this 100% species product to market, obviously with the Kingsford brand on it, was really about quality and a high quality and a premium pellet in a bigger way. The folks that you just mentioned, they were like you said, one of the first people to start bringing 100% hickory to the market. So we're taking that same concept and we're just doing it in a bigger way with the Kingsford brand.
Chris LaRocco joining me here from Trey Fuels. Chris, Kingsford known for charcoal, right? I mean, they are the titans of the charcoal industry. Different variations of charcoal as well, but never up until this point pellets. Any idea why they decided to get into the pellet game?
Well, it's a space that's growing, and it's growing rapidly. The introduction of lower cost devices out over the past couple of seasons have only compelled consumers to, involve themselves in pellet grilling. And so that can't be ignored anymore. It's taking over a large space within the grilling community. Just like lump charcoal was, a big deal, and it still is a big deal. It just can't be ignored anymore. It just continues to grow. And Kingsford, looked at the space, and obviously we've partnered with Kingsford because it's on the fuel side. The pellets are on the fuel side, just like the briquettes are on the fuel side, or they've also got chips and chunks as well. So it's something that they wanted to do, and we worked with them for about a year, and came out of that as the sole licensee for the product.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would imagine that when a company like Kingsford is out looking for a partner in this kind of a venture, that there's probably a fairly extensive, if not extremely extensive, vetting process that goes through. Obviously, their name is going to go on the bag. Trey Fuel making it, but still Kingsford is kind of a live fire grilling and industry leading name. How do you guys end up securing the business? Did they just like the way you guys operated? Did they like quality of product? Was it kind of a combination of all those things?
Yeah, you just hit the nail right on the head. That's exactly right. And the due diligence process was fairly extensive. So everything you said is absolutely correct. For them to put their name on a product, obviously, is going to be a little bit more extensive than us trying to go it alone, or anybody else for that matter.
Did you guys ever think about making like Trey Fuels cooking pellets and trying to bring them to market yourselves?
We absolutely did, and in such a crowded market space, it's very difficult for a producer to do that. Most of the folks that have been around for a long time have secured their position, they've cemented it. Very difficult to open doors. So for us, obviously, and the relationship with Kingsford has helped us be able to bring this product to market.
Do you know?
Which would be very difficult to do on your own.
Do you know if they ever considered taking it in-house? I mean, they have a couple different charcoal manufacturing facilities across the country. Obviously, that doesn't relate to pellets, but do you know if that was something under consideration?
No, I'm not aware of any of that.
Does partnering with Kingsford open doors for Tray Fuels now to do more private labeling? Like if I wanted to do Barbecue Central cooking pellets, are you open to other partnerships, or does partnering with Kingsford now pretty much tie you up as far as pellet production?
Yeah, pellet production, we're pretty tied up. But if you can imagine the amount of interest that we're getting, via the Kingsford relationship, it's becoming bigger by the day. And so to venture off and try to do something else, it's just not something that we would even want to do.
Pure speculation on my point here with the statement I'm about to make, and I'll ask you to make pure speculation as well from an answer standpoint. I think there has to be another shoe that is going to drop, and that being potentially a Kingsford pellet cooker. Total solution. You're making the pellets. They got a pellet cooker. It seems like a match made in heaven. Any idea if that might happen?
Yeah, I believe that that has been pitched. I do believe that's something that's on the horizon. I wouldn't doubt that that's something that's on the horizon right now. So it just makes sense to be a total solution. You are correct.
Could there be this is totally off base and really has nothing to do with Kingsford other than they make charcoal, but could there be a charcoal pellet made, or by the time it gets to a charcoal state, can you not really make it what we would know as a pellet?
No, you couldn't do that. No, it's just, you can't pelletize it, obviously. There are people that are doing a lot of carbonization right now of, various, for soil remediation and what have you. That's another growing industry. But that's not something that would be used for any grilling. And it would be, I don't know, from an engineering perspective, if it's even possible.
Is this available, the Kingsford pellets, are they available for sale like in special locations across the country right now, or is it nationwide if you go on Amazon or various retail locations?
Yeah, Amazon, we're nationwide. Retail locations, currently in 15 Cabela's. Started testing last season with them. And this month we are rolling out into 172 Lowe's stores with the potential of going to 1,200. And also all of the Sears hometown stores are going to be carrying the competition blend pellet.
Yeah, so you got.
And then we've got a bunch of other products in the works. So
yeah, you got the competition blend out right now. You also have the 100% hickory pellet. What's the price point, and what are you getting from a volume standpoint for the price?
So the price point, the on-shelf price right now for the hickory and the competition blend are $18.99, and we are rolling out a 10-pound bag exclusive to Lowe's for this season, and the price point there, I believe, is going to be $11.99. Apologize. And Lowe's will also have 100% oak and cherry in their product mix, so you can get 4 types at Lowe's versus the 2 types that we have out right now in a 20-pound bag.
All right, so the $18.99 is 20-pound bag.
Correct.
Okay. So it's right in line with pretty much everything else. So go on Amazon if you want it. Otherwise, keep your eyes out on Lowe's stores and Cabela's as well in a limited run. We're talking with Chris LaRocco from Tray Fuels. Chris, really appreciate the time tonight. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Take care.
You got it. There he is, Chris LaRocco. I want to say corporate strategies, but he's general manager.
All guests appear via the Traeger Grills hotline.
It's a fun type. Well, look at that.
Yummy.
Man, imagine you're the pellet manufacturer that gets to private label Kingsford pellets. That's like a pretty big deal, I think. I wonder how many of the other pellet manufacturers were solicited. Were all pellet manufacturers on the board for Kingsford? I got to get Kingsford in on this. That was the pellet manufacturer's side. Another first-time guest doing a bang-up job. Good job, Chris. Thank you. We'll come back and wrap up the show right after this. But first, let me talk to you quickly about Traeger grills. That's right. Behind every great meal is a great grill. But not just any grill, a Traeger grill. And the Timberline is Traeger's most advanced grill yet. It allows you to grill, smoke, bake, roast, braise, and barbecue like a pro, no matter what your level of experience, thanks to the incredible wood-fired taste. Seriously, you don't know flavor till you're cooking with it. Traeger grills use all-natural hardwood pellets as fuel, so you're literally cooking with flavor. From low and slow smoked ribs to a seared steak, even a baked apple pie, Traegers can handle it all. And the Traeger Timberline makes it even easier thanks to the Wi-Fi capability. You can check on your cooks, kick up temperatures, and set custom cook cycles anytime, anywhere, all from your phone through the Traeger Grill app. In fact, I used it just this past weekend to check on the brisket that I made, which, by the way, was really awesome. By the way, unsolicited shout out to Danny and the homies over at Barbecue Smokehouse for the brisket hookup. Appreciate that. They gave me the raw brisket. They did the brisket fashion show. Loved it. Find a Traeger Grill dealer to check out the products, or check them out online, TraegerGrills.com. As we talked about with Doug Schediing 2 segments ago, want to beef up your barbecue game? Yeah. Traeger Shop class is going from coast to coast right now, bringing you barbecue knowledge and amazing wood-fired food everywhere you go. Taught by professional pit masters, you'll take home all the skills you need to reach barbecue glory. Find a shop class near you and sign up today at TraegerGrills.com/shopclass. Once again, that's TraegerGrills.com/shopclass. Doug will be in Toronto, I think, and then in Montana. Meanwhile, he's HQ'd in Texas. Frequent flyer miles, Dougie. Buckle up. All right, we're back to wrap the show right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back. We have some times for phone calls, too, if you want to jump in real quick. 216-220-0966. Don't forget, as we close out the show, make sure that you hit up the Facebook donations. Try and get Ben to that $6,000 watermark of revenue for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And there's a Facebook donation page as well. So whichever one you want to use, please donate. Don't forget, first one to do a singular donation of $500 and can prove it to me, I will also donate $500. Very easy. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Whole packers, full racks, legs and thighs, injecting butts. If you've never heard this before, you might think you found the best XXX show ever. Let's get back to the most homoerotic host out there today, Greg Rempe.
Thanks again to Chris LaRocco from Trey Fuels joining me, talking about the new partnership with Kingsford on their cooking wood pellets. They'll actually have 4 different flavors: oak, cherry, hickory, and the competition blend, which I believe is 45% oak, hickory, and then 10% cherry. I think that's right. Going from memory, by the way. TraeFuels.com to check out their website if you want to do that. TRAE Fuels.com. All right, let's go ahead and get ready to wrap it up all the way back in the first hour. First timer of the show, Adrian Miller, Soul Food Scholar, at Soul Food Scholar on Twitter, Soul Food Scholar. Actually, I believe it's adrianmiller.com is his website. Let me pull it up here real quick. Yeah, Adrian Miller, A-D-R-I-A-N. AdrianMiller.com is website, at Food Scholar on the Twitter if you want to check him out. After that, it was Ben Volpe. We were talking about type 1 diabetes. Again, running that telethon, visualathon, thingathon right now. Facebook links are up on the show feed right now. Hit up either site, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation or the Facebook donation page that are listed, and donate. See if we can't get him to $6,000. In the second hour, Doug Schediing showed up, and we talked about his third place overall finish in Bandera this past weekend. Show Karma lives and reigns supreme as always. A little bit about the Traeger models, the Pro and the Timberline. We didn't talk about the Tailgater. I meant to talk about the Tailgater, Dougie. Damn it. Talked about how to light the new models with the lid shut. Lid shut. And rounding it out with Chris LaRocco at TraeFuels.com. They are the pellet manufacturer for Kingsford new wood pellets that are going into the cooking market. There you go. Big show lined up for you next week already, if you can believe it. Ray Lampe and a cast of others. September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.